And so what does unlocking unlimited potential mean to you, Vernon?
Really, it means this. You need to know who you are. And once you know who you are, then you can go ahead and be greatness for someone else. But first, I'm going to challenge you to be greatness for yourself and to live out the greatness that is already inside of you. You don't need to go find greatness in someone else. You don't need to go find greatness in some other place. The greatness is already in you, but do you know what that greatness is?
Unlocking unlimited potential means be unapologetically you. And when you're doing that and you're authentic in what you're doing, you're able to reach your full potential.
It means asking what you aspire to be, and then taking the risks that you need and steps you need to reach that intent. Believing in yourself when you have fear, and continuing on anyways.
Unlocking unlimited potential means supporting the people around us to believe in themselves and understand that everyone has a story and everyone has something to bring to the table. Our job is to help each other unlock what we have to bring into this world and to each other.
So to me, unlocking unlimited potential means continuing to evolve who I am, while also simultaneously honoring who I am right now. So for me, it's about evolving, but about honoring where I am today without limiting the possibilities, so that I truly can and I get to create a life of abundance, passion, and purpose.
Well, I want you to know that inside of you exists an unlimited potential, and I believe in it. And one reason that I believe in it is because inside of us is a potential that once we learn how to control it and harness it and live it with passion, that we'll be able to spread it through our schools and our classrooms and through our communities and into our world like wildfire. Join me on the journey as we explore together unlocking unlimited potential. And I can't wait to be on this journey with you. Welcome to the Unlocking Unlimited Potential Stories show, man. Reaching into the vault for old school.
Yeah, that got me fired up. It was like, I know you do a lot of coaching. It's like we were getting ready to run out on the pitch or wherever, I know you're a soccer coach, so we were ready to go.
Video always gets me fired up, and you were in that video.
I saw that. That was like in the early stages of these, and I was just sitting in the office. I didn't even know if it was video or not. Sun's in my face, and I'm like, wow. Evolving as we go.
That's it. We look better every day. That's all that matters, And your statement there. So first of all, be unapologetically you. I want to say it was born there, but I know it wasn't. This is the first time I heard you say the words, but we're going to dive into that a lot today.
Sure.
Just quick introduction. Dr. Matthew X. Joseph is in the house for the second time.
Second time.
You are not the first, though, to be second.
Okay, I was wondering.
You are number 2 to Darren Peppard, but that is okay. That's a good person to be number 2, too.
Absolutely.
We love Darren. Shout out to Darren. But yeah, here he is, ladies and gentlemen. He is an author. He is a leader. He is a leader in the education field. He is a speaker. He has been everywhere in the school that you could possibly lead. He is an author of, the most recently, from CodeBreaker, The Power of Connections, which has been an awesome jump off point. I'm excited. Last time we were talking to you, were talking about the book coming out. Now the book's been out. Excited to talk about that. And you are also the host of the Can't Make This Beep Up podcast. And most recently, XFactorEDU Publishing.
Yeah, that is launched, and we got a team already. We're ready to go. We got a couple books coming out before the end of 2021. So be ready.
We got to talk about it, man. We're going to talk about that today. As soon as it launched a couple of weeks ago, I said, you got to come back on. We got to talk about that because what interests me most is the stories behind the story, right? So tell us, first of all, let's start at the beginning for a second. You have this book. You wrote this book for Power of Connections. It's not your first book. You've also written a few other books as well. Mm-hmm. And this most recent book that you've written has been just flying off the shelves, is my opinion, and it's been doing really well. And so talk a little bit about your journey into the book, into CodeBreaker, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, it kind of it happened so fast, and it really was in December. So I mean, gosh, 8 months ago at this point, that Brian Aspinall, who I knew kind of up from the speaker circuit, we've kind of crossed paths, maybe kind of said hi once in a while, but never really had any more than just a surface level, like, hey, respectful kind of what's up. And once I started to interview some of the CodeBreaker authors and started to engrossing myself in some of the creative things that they were doing, he kind of reached out and said, hey, what's your next step? What are you thinking about? And one of the things I said was, well, one of the things I really want to dive into is we all talk about how important staying connected is. And none of the things that are new, professional learning networks and different things, but where we were was so critical to connect. And I had opportunities to do that both in some wellness stuff with some people overseas. And I miss going to events. And I said, let's just talk about ways we all kind of talk about that's important. I want to connect the dots. I want to say, it's not just because you ran into somebody and you're like, hey, how you doing? Let's talk. There's actual steps to harnessing an impactful collaborative group. Like even you and I kind of met on a cuff when you just filled out the survey to be on the podcast. And then from there, things grew. And I think it was about how to make those steps from coincidental run-ins to impactful conversations and relationships. So I signed on with CodeBreaker, wrote the book in about 4 months because I wanted to get it out before the summer, and just threw myself into living it too, which was another piece where we started up the Leadership Lounge and the Educator Lounge and doing different things to showcase how these connections are going to maximize things that you do, from video events to blogging. And really the other piece that I'm really proud of with the book is that we have 80 something people in there to show how they do it. And really talking about influencers and how they use podcasts and how they use YouTube or channels like this to connect, or, ed camps or different ways that people use Voxer book studies that we participate in, and just putting it all into one place, because I wanted to make it like a roadmap, but not a checklist. Here's the things you can do. And wherever you are along this path and journey, you can start and maximize it for going further.
Yeah, and I think you kind of talk about in your book a lot about the connections, but not only the connections, but how the connections change us for the better. And I know a lot of people, when they look back at this working when this pandemic started and working through it, and how many of us found ourselves in a place of really needing those connections. And you talked a little bit about it yourself, So what have you found in after publishing this book and people connecting with you and feedback and stuff like that? What have you found that people are taking away as something that they're using to kind of grow their connections, or something that they're using to kind of just become a better, more confident educator in themselves because of connections?
I think a couple things that really have struck me is the amount of people who have started to share their voice, where they were kind of, I talk about the stages of building a professional learning network, and stage 2 is like being a watcher and kind of seeing what's going on, finding blogs, and then morphing into eventually stage 4, which is engaging and interacting. And I think what it allowed people to do, and I think shows like this and just people connecting, is that you and I are both authors, but we're approachable. And we know a lot of people who Brian Aspinall, as we both are friends with, who is incredibly respected and has a huge following, is a regular guy you can just talk with. And I think that's one of the pieces that I have found in the book, that people have reached out and like, oh my gosh, you'll reply. And I think finding that avenue is, we're all in this together. I'm essentially a district leader who used to be a principal. I'm not this researcher who does 3 years on a study and then publishes a book. Like, we're just sharing our own journey and sharing what has worked, and to really promote that to help other people. And that's been one of the things. And the other is the amount of people who have jumped into something new, either Twitter chats, starting a blog, starting, a podcast. And I think that's been just great to see that people are using some of the strategies and saying, I'm going to start, and I'm going to just dive in and do it. And we had our first, 2 weeks ago, we had our most recent CodeBreaker summer camp, and some people at the event were like, I wasn't going to come But I read some of the things that you wrote about. One of the chapters is about taking the live in-person events and putting them into practice. And like, we want to see it in person. So I was like, wow, that's, as as someone who does this and sees the impact, it was just great to see that these little stories and these little ideas are shifting the way people think and connect and communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. We rise by lifting others. We talked
For
about
sure.
that as the title of this episode. And I think for someone who's written a book called The Power of Connections and, really truly lives that, because I've known you now, since, we met way back when. And, it's also about walking your talk, right? It's also about,
Sure.
really living up to what your book and what you really believe in, and finding ways to continue to help others live that same kind of vision and build their visions from within. And I think that's awesome. I think that's what it's all about at the end of it all. And we talked about it last week with Christine. We talked about the CodeBreaker summer camp, and just, I know you finished this, you had a big part in planning and putting that together, and you just talked about, you just brought it up. So we got to chat about it for a second, but talk a little bit about that CodeBreaker summer camp and what that meant to you.
Well, I think on a few different levels, and I'm going to go back to my real connection with the CodeBreaker and Brian and Daphne, where what I have found the most inspiring is that it's a yes and culture, that we're always pushing each other. And I had just come back from an event in Texas, and it was a hybrid event, and I just threw it out to them, and I said, what if we did something like this? And for the next 2 or 3 days, we just bounced ideas back and forth. And the next thing you know, we have a date. We had another CodeBreaker author stepped up and hosted it at his school, Chris Jones, and we just ran with it. And I think what really was great for me is that people came together. Nobody asked what my stipend was. Nobody asked, and we're all in this, obviously there's a business side of what we do, but we all came together to say, this is for the greater good, because somebody helped us to get where we were, and we want to do that for other people. And when I was actually at the event, it was amazing, because we had the night before, we had kind of a dinner and to meet some people. And like, I consider you my friend. We've never been in the same zip code and at the same time. And to get to see like Frank for the first time, get to meet him, or Bobby French, or different people that I've really never met in person. And it was like, wow, okay, we have another level of our connection still to be discovered. And then to have the actual day and see people at one show up in the summer, which was awesome. And to see this virtual kind of hybrid event work was great. And again, we were talking about doing some more of these, because people came, and it wasn't like ISTE's 7,000 people. It was a smaller group. But what I liked about it is everybody that came said how inspired they were when they left.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I mean, I think that is what it's all about. And you talk about how there's so many people that we've met, especially since the beginning of this pandemic. We've all met so many individuals and so many, leaders, and so many new people and new connections. But you're right, yet to meet many of them in person. But we have like this whole other connection that, I really look to, my PLN as people who really saved me in the career. And, during a very tough and dark time of being an educator through a pandemic, and, jumping in and launching and getting the, there's 2 people on the show right now that are basically people that jumped into something new, people that jumped into something that they, an idea, and chased that idea and went after it. And now, there's no better transition than to talk about what you've just recently launched, because that's really what I wanted to really talk about.
Sure.
Talk a little bit now. You've gone from, publishing your, I forget how many books you've published.
3.
Okay, I was right. So I just don't want to.
That's all right.
Undercut you. So 3, you've published 3 books, and now you're at a point in your career where you're saying, you know what, I want to turn this to not only publishing my own work, but also continuing to publish the work of others and share, build people up, who have these dreams and visions within.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it started obviously with the CodeBreaker team and seeing how they carry themselves and how they promote others' voices. And because of that, allowing me to run the leadership lounge and the educators lounge. So I started to meet amazing people, and people were coming in and hearing so many great stories. And through that, I was able to meet and connect with Brian about some educators I knew about publishing and writing a book. And one of the things that as you said about my own book, Power Connections, it's about empowering other people. It's about what can you do to rise others up. And, June 8th, I turned the calendar and turned 50. And it was like, what's next? And talking with Brian through the summer, one of the things we talked about is having a team of my own to amplify their voices, still work under the CodeBreaker umbrella. So because we're all part of a team, but to have my own team of authors to amplify their voice in kind of a different lane. So I've been essentially for the last 8 years, as a principal, I was a digital leader. I worked with Apple and did a lot with ISTE and MassQ. And then as an administrator, I was a director of digital learning and have a lot of involvement with FETC and TCA. So I'm working with a lot of educational leaders who have a base in almost digital technology and innovation. So to take a niche group of educators and amplify their voices, going from session presenters to published authors. And when he and I talked about it, it just made sense, because a lot that I talk about, one of the books I wrote was on mentoring, like how can we embrace other people to get their voices out. And then this book, Power Connections, like how can I use the connections that I have to amplify others? And he and I talked it through, and we launched, the X Factor Publishing under my own LLC, the XFactorEDU, as an arm of CodeBreaker Publishing. And we're just excited to get going. We signed some amazing people, and a few others have already reached out, and it's been something I didn't expect, the how many people positively received the information and excitement of what could come.
Yeah, and I think you just kind of nailed it right there. You started something. We say that a lot at CodeBreaker, you just start. And, there's been no truer thing that I've learned throughout my career. And, even this show is the perfect example of something you just start. It may be messy at first. It may not go as planned. But what I do like is that you also launched with authors already. So you already had like the wheels in motion. And I think that that's important. And so people want to reach out. The website is there. I see it at the bottom of the screen. People want to reach out, and they want to propose or present you with an idea or a book. What do you want? Like, how do you want them to present that to you?
Yeah, it was twofold. We actually came, we were live essentially as a unit a month before we launched, 3 weeks. But as you said, it was important to me to not just, I didn't want to be the face of it. Granted, I am, the one who's launching it and being overseeing different departments and teams, but I didn't want it to come across as a one-person thing, because that goes totally against everything I just wrote about. So I actually went down and met with a few people in Texas. I knew a few people I talked with, and got a fleet of, and some authors that I knew from CodeBreaker up in Canada. We have 3 Canadian authors already and growing. So I wanted to get a team together first so that I could have kind of a clear vision of where we are going, because as you said, you do want to just start, but I'm not someone who wants to limp out of the gate. I want to come out and say, this is us. Like, this is who we are. I do a lot with, vision planning and different things with schools, and this is what we stand for. And we came out as a unit. And so I had some people on board. We built up a website. So we look like we're the professionals that we are. And I didn't want to say, this is an idea I have, who's with me? I wanted people with me to start, because it is about all of us. And then from there, people have kind of reached out either through direct message or on the website that's there. And the one of the tabs is share your idea for a story. And we've had a few people reach out. I'm actually meeting with one tomorrow. It was something I had never thought that to write about. And that's been the part that's been so rewarding for me is, our most recent author, Yuritsa, who just reached out, and she and I have been friends. We did the mentor roundtable together, and she said, I want to write a children's book for inner city kids who don't see themselves in the children's books they have. And I was just blown away, like, done. Like, let's do it. And it's crazy. And then I put something out on LinkedIn, like, hey, we're looking for an illustrator. I had about 42 people reach out. It's it's been amazing to do it. So yeah, we had a fleet of people, and then we're slowly just seeing some others who see what we're about and match that drive and excitement and are coming on board.
That's awesome. So as people are starting to present ideas to you, what's it look like? Because a lot of times every publisher, it's a little bit different, but some are more formal and some are more informal. What do you want? What do you look for when someone's ready to present an idea with you?
I look and listen for someone that has drive.
Mm-hmm.
I would say almost everybody that the original team that signed on, no one had a manuscript. I wanted to get people. I focused on the people. I wanted people who had drive. I wanted people who had an exciting story. I wanted people to say, this is important to me. I didn't want someone to say, I want to be a published author. And that was the first thing I looked for, is the people. What kind of drive do they have? What kind of excitement do they have? What kind of story do they have? And going back to one of the first things you said, and it's the first line in my book, is to be unapologetically you. I wanted people who walk the walk. I didn't want books that are buzzwords and things that I've heard 100 times. I want something different. And at the end of the day, yes, we are in a business, but I want people to be proud of what they put out. I've been through writing with a publisher who was scripted in different pieces, and I didn't like it. And CodeBreaker was like, write your book. Every time I said something to Daphne, like, can I try this? It was yes, yes, yes. And I wanted to model that. And that's what I look for, the drive of a great idea and just something different that I can stand behind. And our name is going to be on it. The X Factor logo is going to be on the back. And that's important to me. That's my middle name, Xavier, and that's my grandfather's middle name. So that's important to me. And that's what I look for. What can I put my name on? And this leg of my career that I'm proud of.
That's awesome. Yeah. And we talk about, one thing we do on this show is we dedicate each show to someone who's out there unlocking unlimited potential in all whom they serve. And we reached into your team for this one.
Sure.
We pulled out this guy. So
absolutely,
there he is. Let me just remove the banner. There he is right there. Alfonso Mendoza. Shout out to you, my
absolutely.
brother. The man that my ed tech life. Awesome podcast, awesome person, awesome content. Make sure you connect with him. Tell us a little bit about your connection with Alfonso.
He was definitely one that I wanted on my initial team because he and I connected through the Leadership Lounge. And one of the things that he said to me early on was he was struggling with if he's a leader or not, because he's an ed tech leader in his district. And I was like, yes, you are. Like, we're not talking about that anymore. And he started to come each week to the Leadership Lounge and participate more each time. And his story was great. And then I did his podcast. And I'll tell you, the thing that really, the hook for me, and it might sound awkward, his intro video was so just cool and who he was. He's just walking down, in his location in Texas and proud of who he is. He has got his sneakers. And I'm like, dude, this guy is just himself. And then, so I kind of did my homework and I reached out, and he and I wrote an article together. We co-authored an article for Tech and Learning Leader because, again, there's some great people who might not be great authors or great, part of an author team. They may be a part of something different. So he and I wrote an article together that was published in Tech and Learning Leader. And I knew right away he was definitely on that first wave of ask. And it was very similar to when I asked Chris Jones to host the CodeBreaker summer camp. When I called Alfonso, it was just pure joy. And to me, that's worth it. No matter what comes next. He was psyched. He did his professional headshot. It was awesome. It just made me feel like there was something there that was an accomplishment that made this possible. So I was psyched to have him on board. I'm psyched to have him on the website. I'm psyched to have him on the team. And I can't wait to see what he writes about. And he's writing about amplified creativity and how to be more creative in classrooms.
There is something that is definitely something I want to read. And that is, those are the ideas that, the ideas of innovation, creativity, and, all of the things. I mean, people have really unpacked a lot in the last year and a half. There's a lot of books out there waiting to be written. There's a lot of people, the story of just the last year and a half alone is books upon books within themselves, and research and doctoral research
Right.
and all of these. It's such a current area that, this is a time that we really want to hold on to. This is a time that we really, should be reflecting upon. We should be working together to think further about. And I just love to see stories like that. And I appreciate that. So totally awesome. Well, listen, before we get going, there's one thing you've done already on this show, but you need to do it again. You need to do another version. Now, the new you version. You have to finish my sentence.
Yes.
Unlocking unlimited potential means
giving somebody a chance and being there to support them through it.
Ooh, that's the XFactorEDU perspective.
There we go.
Like
yeah.
that. I love it. I love it. So, and it's been great. Listen, so the best way for people to keep in touch with you, to reach out to you, to find out about all the awesome things happening at XFactor, XFactorEDU.org. Check it out. That is it. And what's coming next? There's so many great things coming from XFactor. So what can we expect coming from you guys next?
Well, we're having a big release party this week for a new author signed. We're really excited, and that person's book is actually going to be out in 2021. I won't get too deep into another event, but we are going to do a follow-up to the summer camp in 2021. So there'll be another CodeBreaker Presents event, a hybrid event. So those are two things coming up. I don't want to spill too many beans, but people knew kind of like we weren't going to stop at one. So those are two things that are coming up, and just keep working with districts. And it's been fun to actually get out and start to work with other districts and other teachers as we start the school year.
That's it. They need it. They need you, and they need your ideas, brother. And I appreciate you getting on this show. Absolutely. I appreciate you. Remember, everybody out there, that the journey toward unlocking unlimited potential begins with you. Continue to educate with passion in your journey. Matt, I hope you have an awesome day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Be good.
All right. All the best. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.